This is our second appointment of the webinar series about research on research program. Today, I'm very pleased to have here with us two partners, one professor, Billy Sung, and Dr. Patrick Duong, the researcher from Curtin University in beautiful Perth, Australia. They run the Consumer Research Lab. In this facility, they have outstanding tools and technologies to measure respondents' physical reactions, body reactions. So they use biometrics to measure that. And they will show us the results from an experiment, controlled randomized trial that compares AI interviewer, human interviewers. So I'll briefly tell a couple of words about our program, the Research on Research program. This is Cloud's way to inform researchers and practitioners about AI moderated interviews. How we call them is AMI, very friendly. Today, Professor Sung and Dr. Duong will cover a specific pillar about comparison with human moderation. We have other projects conducting. The first webinar was about AMI compared to static surveys, and we will have other appointments to bring evidence about other experiments that cover topics like case scenarios, respondents types, and also answer modalities in AI moderation. Cloud allows free access to the platform, to the partners, but this has never been business relationships. So every analysis, every result, even by the researchers, the partner researchers. And I'm really, really happy to have here our guests today. Just to bring everyone on the same page before we get started, if any of you haven't tried an interview AI moderated yet, think about an AMI as a questionnaire augmented. So basically a boosted interview where closed and open questions are moderated by an AI agent. So the agent understands the respondent's answer, follow-ups accordingly, and dives deeper into the respondent answer. So the experience is dynamic, it's conversational, more similar to what would be the experience with a human moderator. That being said, I shut up and leave the mic to our guests. So please, Patrick and Billy, the mic is yours.
All right. Thank you so much, Veronica. Such a warm welcome from everyone over in Italy. Thank you, Alina, as well, for the organizing and hosting such an interactive and informative event today. So I'm Patrick, and I'm from Curtin University in Perth. So I'm glad to be here and to talk to everyone about the latest collaborative research between Cloud and Curtin University and the Consumer Research Lab, where I'm based at. So before we going into the actual research and the findings that we had from this, I want to walk you guys through a little bit about the research background and the premise of the research questions. So in this research, we want to know whether AI can perform well, not only in terms of collecting useful response, but also in how people experiencing the interview emotionally and psychologically. So this matters because AI interviews are a promising capability that could extend our research capacity by conducting interview at scale very efficiently. So while some early studies have suggested that AI can perform comparatively to human interviewer in certain contexts, many significant gaps remain. So because most research focus only on the quality of the answers, whether the AI can ask good questions. But we know much less about how people actually feel when being interviewed by an AI agent. So our research is more about, do they feel comfortable? Do they trust the AI? Do they feel awkward when interacting with the AI? And are they willing to disclose the information when being interviewed by the AI? So these were the questions that motivated the study that we present here today. So the first goal of our research is to understanding the cognitive and evaluative domain of the consumer response when they being interviewed and how they judge the interviewer and the interview experience. The second main goal is to understand the emotional and physiological domain, basically how people respond emotionally and physically during the interview. So let's go through the research design a little bit. So to answer this question, we conduct a randomized control experimental study. So we recruit 60 participants in Australia from our university, Curtin University, including the staff and students who were proficient in English. So each participant complete a short interview of around 20 minutes. The interview topic was on fast fashion and its environmental impact. We choose this topic because it's familiar enough for most people to discuss, but still meaningful enough to encourage personal views and their experience. The most important aspect of this topic is that because people are required to share their views on the environmental and social impact of fast fashions, and these issues can be personally and morally charged, and that could potentially trigger emotional reactions. So in this research, we collect two types of evidence. So first, we collect self-reported data. So this was done after the interview conclude. Participants basically reported their feeling toward the interviewer and the interview experience. They also reported their willingness to disclose information or whether they're able to disclose information efficiently. Second, we collect the biometric data of psychophysiological response throughout the entire interview process. And this allows us to observe the emotional and the physiological response during the interview rather than relying only on what participants said or report afterward. So we capture their emotional response through facial expression, stress and engagement through skin conductance and heart rate, which I will show provide a little bit more details in that later stage. So this approach is quite important because most of the time people may not always be able to accurately describe their own emotional state, or they are unable to recall their experience throughout the interview. So biometrics give us another layer of evidence, and we call this triangulation approach, where various sources of data are complementary to each other's, providing a much more complete and accurate findings. So in this research, we basically assign the participant into or one condition or the others. So in one of the conditions, the participants were interviewed by the cloud AI interviewer. So, and the other condition, they were interviewed by a human interviewer. Both groups basically experienced a standardized interview format. So every participant will ask a same core set, 7 semi-structured questions. So these questions were designed to guide the interview while still allowing follow-up discussions. So in the AI interview condition, participants interact directly with the AI system, where the AI used text to speech and generated adaptive follow-up question based on what the participant said. And in the human interview conditions, a trained researchers conduct the interview. However, they strictly follow the question generated by cloud AI in the background. So this design was important to us because we want to isolate the effect of the interviewer mode and determine whether the human presence is still necessary for an interview. So in terms of biometric measure, this is what set our research quite apart from existing research in the literatures on the context or on the topic of AI interviewers. So we use two types of biometric data. The first one is facial expression analysis. So this involves a second-by-second tracking of 68 different facial landmarks on the participant face to detect emotional response. So for example, the system can detect patterns associated with emotions such as joy, confusion, sadness, surprise or anger, and even disgust. Meanwhile, the second biometric response that we collect is electrodermal activities, often referred to as EDA or skin conductance. So this measure the change in your skin conductance or your skin properties. So basically associate with your physiological arousal. And in practical term, it can give an indication of stress or emotional activation or whether you engage with the interview or not. We also track the physiological engagement through heart rate as well. So the reason these measures are quite useful at being included in the research is because it helps us to go beyond the question, the typical self-reported question, did you feel stressed? Instead, we can examine whether there are observable differences in emotional response and physiological arousal throughout the entire interview while the participant were actually interacting with an AI. So in the self-reported measure, just to give everyone a bit more details on what are some of the questions that we ask the participant at the end of the interview, we basically get the participant to report their experience and their evaluation of the interviewers. Some of the measure that we captures first is willingness to disclose. So this is very important because it captures when the participant felt comfortable sharing the information with the interviewers. Because most interviews, good interview depends on the participant being open, reflective, and willing to share. Second, we measure the ability to disclose effectively. So this related to whether in the participant feel easy to talk to the interviewer, feel there's no awkwardness at all in the interactions. We then measure the sense of connections. So this capture whether participant feel they had established some sort of a rapport or connection with the interviewer. And finally, we measure the perceived trustworthiness, which basically allow us to capture whether the participant felt safe sharing their information. So together, these measures allow us to assess not just whether the AI can ask good questions, but whether the people or the participant experience an interview as trustworthy, comfortable, and effective in their interview. So now let's look at our result a little bit in detail. So first, we talk about the self-reported measure. Overall, what we found is quite promising. We found actually human interviewer performed a little bit better than the AI interviewer in a few areas related to emotional connections, such as we found that participants report a stronger sense of connection with the human interviewer compared to the AI interviewer. They also gave a slightly higher overall evaluation to the human interviewer. This is not surprising considering the human are quite naturally good at creating social presence. However, the most important finding here is that the AI interviewer actually performed comparatively to the human interviewer on several key performance metrics, such as we found no significant difference in perceived trustworthiness, no significant difference on positive interview experience, and no significant difference on willingness to disclose information as well. So what these findings show us is that even though participants felt more connected to the human interviewer, they actually have no issue or feel no concern when they're interacting with an AI interviewer, and they were able to disclose the information quite efficiently. So if the objective is to collect rich, honest, and useful response at scale, the AI interviewer can perform quite relatively well compared to the human interviewer. When we look a little bit closer into the biometric response, so we measure the aspect or different emotional response, such as the anger, contempt, disgust, fears, sadness, confusion, or surprise. What we're seeing in here is that our original concern is that people often think or feel an AI interviewer may feel unnatural or uncomfortable. So we expect the participant might have a little bit more negative emotional response when they're interacting with the AI interviewer. However, this is not what we found. We actually found that across all the negative emotional response, such as anger, contempt, disgust, fear, and sadness, there's no significant difference between the AI and the human interviewer. And most importantly, we did not observe any significant difference in stress measured by the skin conductance. This suggests that when the participant interact with an AI interview, they didn't experience any additional emotional strain. In other words, the AI interview did not appear to make people more stressed or more emotionally uncomfortable compared to human interviewers. So this is very important for any qualitative or qualitative research because it's providing the participant being comfortable with the interviewer could lead to a higher or better willingness to disclose or ability to disclose efficiently. So the key takeaway here is that the AI interviewer did not generate any higher negative emotions or stress, and it suggests that AI can be deployed without creating any burden for the respondent in our particular context. We further looking into what actually predict people willingness to disclose information. And so this is one of the most important outcome for any interviews or any qualitative research is that people are willing to disclose the information or providing the answers to the questions. So our analysis show that there are two key factors that reliably predict willingness to disclose. So the first was trustworthiness. So when the participant felt that the interviewer was trustworthy, they were more willing to share the information. The second was the positive interview experience. So when the participant had a positive interview experience, they were also more willing to disclose. So what is interesting here is that the differences in terms of trustworthiness and positive experience between the human interviewer and AI interviewer, there's no significant difference at all. So what it means is that in the AI and human interviewers did not differ significantly on the willingness to disclose because the AI can actually create a similar amount of trustworthiness or level of trustworthiness or positive experience in the whole interview experience. So for AI interview, the implication for AI interview design is that what mattered most for disclosures was whether people actually trust the interviewer or whether the interaction felt positive. So the goal is not necessarily make the AI seem more human, but should make it more transparent, safe, and responsive and easy to interact with. So overall, what exactly is our finding or our result mean? So the first major finding that we had here is that the AI performed comparatively to human on several key metrics. So participants actually trust the AI interviewers the same as they trust a human AI interviewer. And because of that, they were willing to disclose more information and efficiently. So they did not report any worse interview experience, and the biometric evidence also showed no higher negative emotional response or stress. So this suggests that AI moderated interviews have a strong practical potential. It can help us to conduct qualitative interview at a much larger scale without necessarily increasing emotional cost for the participant. For the second finding, we found that the human remain quite important in emotional domain where connections or emotional sensitivity or complex report is important. So for example, if the topic involves trauma, grief, health, or discrimination topic, human involvement might still be very essential to build that rapport and have that positive emotional connections. The third finding that we had is that AI moderated interviews can reliably elicit a similar level of disclosure as human interviewer. So this is critical because disclosure is the foundation of good qualitative research. And if AI can generate a similar willingness to disclose, it becomes a viable option to many research contexts. So this opened up several possibilities to conduct interview with efficiency and at a lower cost as well. Finally, we found that willingness to disclose is driven primarily by trust and positive interview experience. This signals that AI interviewers should prioritize, or the design of AI interviews should prioritizing the transparency and immediacy of the system. Participants should understand who and what they are speaking to, so they should know how their data will be used as well. That this will help to build that transparency and perceived trustworthiness. The AI should also respond in a way that it feels relevant, respectful, and easy to follow. So this basically is not a focusing on the experience design concern that allowing the AI to feel more transparent, feel more trustworthy. So that, to conclude, our study showed that AI interviewers can perform quite comparatively to human interview, especially on the willingness to disclose and across different important dimensions. Just fighting not to say that AI interviewers are necessarily a replacement for human interviewer, but when being designed well, it can provide a powerful tool to conducting qualitative research at scale while preserving the trust and the confidence and good disclosure from the consumer. So this is at the end of our presentation. So thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to additional questions if you guys have.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Patrick. I personally find these results tremendously interesting. And yes, I see that there is already a raised hand. We really have 6-7 minutes for questions. So I would like you to ask directly if there's nothing asked in the chat. And I'm sure I saw a raised hand. So feel free to speak up. Okay, so there is a typed question from Mike Brown. Thank you, Mike. Do you expect to see different results across cultures? For instance, would a participant in Japan respond differently to one in Germany? That's an interesting question.
Patrick,
Believe
want me to do it? Yeah, I can answer it, and then Patrick, if you, Veronica, if you want to come in to have a chat, to add on to it. So, I think in this study we really didn't test the cultural difference effect. However, the participant that we actually have, we actually have 60 participants, and they are actually from different variety of background. Now, the topic that was discussed was actually sustainability in fast fashion context. So, what we are seeing is that from an observational perspective, we can't test anything with statistical significance. But from an observational perspective, I think there's not much cultural differences, and it might just be because of a topic issue, right? But I do think that there are definitely some sort of variation between cultures. So there are cultures that are probably more open to having an AI interviewing them, and there are cultures that might not be. Culture like Japan, for instance, or younger generation might actually be more comfortable in being interviewed by AI instead of a human interviewer, especially with sensitive topics, so on and so forth. But yeah, good question. Patrick, Veronica, anything to add or?
Yeah, so I would like to add on to what Billy just said above. So in terms of the statistical analysis, it's hard for us to really determine if there would be a difference between across culture, but observational, we see participant report providing their debrief, and most of them are quite open to the usage of AI in interview across different cultures. But again, we have a very small sample size to really say that it's actually the case.
I totally agree. And yeah, I think it's a very relevant question and one that should be studied more. I think cultural differences can play, can be potentially play a role in many type of research collection methodologies. So yeah, I would really like to see comparison as well. Is there any other question in the crowd? If not, maybe just quickly to close. Well, first of all, I really want to thank Billy and Patrick for their time today, and especially for their incredible research. The white paper is published on our website on the section about the GLOUT Research on Research program. And, in case you want to keep following us, we will have another webinar upcoming on June 11th. With responsive research, qualitative researcher that compared panelists to poll recruited participants. That's another very interesting topic because it's not always just about the methodologies. It can always be the differences between respondents type, and panelists and core researchers are the typical audiences of many market research projects. Thank you very much again. I don't know if Patrick really want to add something, and otherwise I'll see you next time.
That's good. Thank you for organizing.
Thank you so